Elijah Grantham set down his fork and counted the empty chairs. 8 of them. 8 places set with plates. No one would touch cups. No one would lift silverware. No one would use. Christmas Eve, 1878. He'd done this for 3 years now. Eating alone at a table built for family. Talking to ghosts who never answered back. Then he heard it. A sound that didn't belong to wind or memory. A child's cry, weak and desperate, cutting through the silence like a blade through snow. Eli froze. His hand trembled over his coffee cup. That cry came again. Weaker now. If you want to see how one knock on a door changed everything, subscribe to my channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. The cry died into silence. Eli pushed back from the table, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. His boots felt heavy as he crossed the room. Every step toward that door felt like walking through water. 3 years he'd lived alone in this house. 3 years since Pa drew his last breath in the bedroom upstairs. 3 years of silence so thick he could choke on it. Nobody came to Grantham Ranch. Not anymore. Eli reached the door. His hand hovered over the latch. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows like something trying to get in. He pulled the door open. Snow swirled in, first biting and cold. Then his eyes found them. A woman collapsed against his porch post. A child pressed tight against her side, barely moving. Both of them covered in white, like the land was trying to bury them alive. "Lord Almighty," Eli breathed. He lunged forward, catching the woman before she slid completely to the ground. She weighed nothing. Her body shook so hard he felt it through his coat. Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. Blue lips, skin white as paper, but those eyes, even half frozen, burned with something fierce. "My daughter," she whispered. "Please, save my daughter." The little girl whimpered. She clutched a rag doll with one arm missing, held it like a lifeline. Eli didn't think. Didn't hesitate. He scooped the child up with one arm, wrapped his other around the woman's waist. "Inside," he said. "Now, both of you." He half-carried, half-dragged them across the threshold, kicked the door shut behind him. The warmth of the house hit them like a wall. The woman's legs buckled. Eli guided her to the nearest chair, lowered her down gentle as he could. The child he set on the rug by the fireplace. "Stay there," he told the girl. "Don't move." He grabbed wood, threw it on the fire. Flames climbed higher. He worked fast, stoking the heat, willing the room to warm faster. When he turned back, he got his first real look at them. The woman was maybe 35. Gaunt face, but dignified. Her dress was worn thin in places but clean. Mended careful where it had torn. She was poor, that was plain. But she wasn't broken. Not yet. The child was small. 6 years old, maybe 7. Brown curls escaping from a messy braid. Eyes too big for her pale face. She watched him like a spooked colt ready to bolt if he moved wrong. "How long were you out there?" Eli asked. The woman lifted her head. Her whole body trembled, but her voice came out steady. "Hours. We got lost. The storm came up so fast." She paused, swallowing hard. "I saw your light. It was the only light for miles." Eli grabbed a quilt from the back of the sofa. His mother's handiwork. Hadn't been touched in years. He wrapped it around the little girl's shoulders. "What's your name, child?" The girl looked at her mother first. Waited for permission. "It's all right, Josie," the woman said softly. "Tell the man your name." "Josephine," the girl whispered. "But Mama calls me Josie." "Josie." Eli nodded. "That's a fine name. You warm enough now, Josie?" She nodded, clutching the quilt tight. Eli turned to the woman. "And you, ma'am?" "Clara," she said. "Clara Weston." She hesitated, then added, "Widow." The word hung in the air. Widow. Eli knew what that word cost a woman to say out loud. "Where were you headed, Mrs. Weston?" Clara's composure cracked, just for a second. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quick like she was ashamed of it. "California," she said. "My sister lives there. Or she did. I don't know anymore. I don't know anything anymore." Her voice broke on the last word. Josie scrambled up from the rug, pressed herself against her mother's side. "Don't cry, Mama. Please don't cry." Clara stroked her daughter's hair. Her hand shook. Eli stood there useless, watching this woman fight to hold herself together. He'd seen men break down before, seen cowboys cry over dead horses, dead dreams. But this was different. This was a mother trying to be strong when she had nothing left. "I'll get you food," Eli said gruffly. "Warm soup, bread, coffee if you want it." "Sir, we couldn't possibly—" "You will." His tone left no room for argument. "It's Christmas Eve, Mrs. Weston. Nobody starves on my watch." He moved toward the kitchen, stopped at the doorway. "You'll stay the night," he added. "Both of you. Roads ain't safe in this storm. We'll figure the rest come morning." Clara opened her mouth to protest, but Eli was already gone. In the kitchen, Eli braced his hands against the counter. His heart was pounding. Actually pounding like he'd run 5 miles through deep snow. A woman and child. In his house. On Christmas Eve. Pa's voice echoed in his head. "This house is for Granthams. Blood and duty son. But Pa was dead. Ma was dead. And that woman's blue lips, that child's huge, frightened eyes." Eli shook his head. One night. That's all. Come morning, he'd take them to town. Find them proper help. This was charity, nothing more. Christian duty. He ladled soup into bowls, cut thick slices of bread, poured coffee strong and hot. When he carried the tray back to the parlor, something stopped him in the doorway. Clara had moved. She sat on the floor now next to her daughter, both of them huddled by the fire. Josie's head rested on Clara's shoulder. Clara's arms wrapped around the child, protective, fierce. They looked like they'd been holding each other that way for months, like it was the only thing keeping them alive. Eli cleared his throat. "Food's ready." Clara looked up, and in her eyes he saw it gratitude so raw and deep it made his chest hurt. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you, Mr. Grantham. Elijah Grantham. Eli. Thank you, Mr. Grantham. I don't know how we'll ever repay. Eat first. Talk later." He set the tray down, handed Clara a bowl. She took it with both hands, letting the warmth seep into her frozen fingers. "Josie." Eli crouched down to the girl's level. "You like soup?" The child nodded, still wary. "Good, 'cause I made too much. You'd be doing me a favor eating some." That got a tiny smile, just a flicker, but it was there. Eli handed her a bowl, watched her take her first sip. Her eyes went wide. "It's good," she whispered, like she was surprised. "My ma's recipe. She made it every winter. Said it could warm a person from the inside out." "Your mama sounds nice." Eli's throat tightened. She was. She surely was. They ate in silence for a while. Clara tried to go slow, maintain dignity, but hunger won. She finished her bowl and Eli refilled it without asking. Josie fell asleep halfway through her bread, slumping against her mother's side. "She's exhausted," Clara said quietly, stroking her daughter's hair. "We've been walking for 3 days." 3 days? In this weather? Clara nodded. She stared at the fire, not at him. "My husband died 8 months ago. Mining accident. Samuel was a good man, but he wasn't careful with money. After he passed, I found out about the debts." She paused. "We lost everything. The house, the land, his equipment. Everything." Her voice was flat, factual. Like she'd told this story so many times, she'd learned to drain the emotion from it. "I had a sister in California, Margaret. We'd write letters twice a year. She always said if I ever needed anything—" Clara trailed off. laughed bitterly. I sent word we were coming. No answer. Got to her last address and found strangers living there. Neighbors said she'd moved on 2 years ago. No one knew where. Eli didn't know what to say to that. What could anyone say? We've been going from town to town since then, Clara continued. Looking for work, for family, for anything. She finally looked at him, her eyes hollow. We have nothing, Mr. Grantham, nothing but each other. You have shelter tonight. That's something. Clara's lips pressed together. She looked down at her sleeping daughter. Can I ask you something, Mr. Grantham? Eli. Eli. She tested the name. Why are you alone on Christmas Eve? A man with a house like this, a ranch you should have. Family. She didn't say it, but the word hung between them. Eli stood, walked to the window, stared out at the darkness and the falling snow. I had a sweetheart once. He said the words rusty from years of silence. Rebecca. We were supposed to marry. She was coming out from Ohio to meet me. Cholera got her on the trail. She died 200 miles from here. Never even made it to Montana. He heard Clara's soft intake of breath behind him. After that, I stayed to help my folks. Ma got sick, then Pa. I nursed them both, buried them both. He turned to face her. This house was supposed to be full of children and grandchildren. That was Pa's dream. Instead, it's just me. Has been for 3 years now. Clara was watching him with something he couldn't read. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. We're quite a pair, aren't we? She said softly. Both of us haunted by what should have been. Eli didn't answer. Couldn't. Josie stirred in her sleep, murmuring something. Clara gathered her closer. We should get her to bed, Eli said. There's a room upstairs, second door on the left. Clean sheets, warm blankets. You take it. Mr. Grantham, Eli, we can't take your bed. It ain't my bed. It's the guest room. Ain't been used in years, but it's clean. He moved toward this fireplace, grabbed the poker, stirred the embers. House has 6 bedrooms. 3 years I've been rattling around in here like a pea in a drum. Makes no sense having all this space with nobody in it. Clara rose slowly. Josie cradled in her arms. The child didn't weigh much. Too thin. Both of them were too thin. You've shown us more kindness in 1 hour than we've seen in 8 months, Clara said. I won't forget it. She moved toward the stairs. Mrs. Weston. She stopped, turned. Rest now, Eli said. We'll talk tomorrow. Figure out what comes next. Clara nodded. Then she climbed the stairs, her daughter in her arms, disappearing into the darkness of the second floor. Eli stood in the empty parlor. The fire crackled. The grandfather clock ticked. Outside, wind screamed against the walls. But the silence felt different now, less complete. Like something new had entered the house and changed the air itself. He moved through the rooms without thinking about it. First, the parlor lamp turning up the wick, filling the room with golden light. Then the hallway. The kitchen. Pa's study. Ma's sewing room. Every lamp he could find, every candle, he lit them all. The house blazed to life around him. Eli didn't know why he was doing it, didn't analyze it. He just knew that darkness felt wrong tonight. After 3 years of barely lighting one room at a time, conserving oil, living in shadows, tonight, the house needed to shine. When he finished, he stood at the front window. From out there in the snow, his house would look like a beacon, a star burning on the dark prairie. Anyone lost out there, he thought. Anyone looking for shelter. They'd see this. He thought of Clara's words. I saw your light. It was the only light for miles. Something shifted in his chest. A door he'd kept locked for 3 years rattled on its hinges. Just one night, he reminded himself. Tomorrow you'll take them to town. This is charity, Christian duty, nothing more. But as he climbed the stairs to his own bedroom, passing the door behind which Clara and Josie slept, he heard the child murmur in her dreams. Heard Clara's soft answering whisper. The house sounded alive. For the first time in 3 years, Eli didn't feel alone. He lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. Pa's portrait hung on the opposite wall, stern eyes watching him in the darkness. "I know," Eli whispered. "I know, Pa, but I couldn't leave them out there. You'd have done the same. You and Ma both." No answer. Just the wind. Just the creaking of old wood. Just one night, Eli told himself again. But somewhere deep inside, in a place he'd forgotten existed, hope stirred. Fragile. Terrifying. Alive. Morning light came cold and clean through the windows. Eli woke to a sound he hadn't heard in 3 years. Someone moving in his kitchen. He dressed fast, heart pounding. Went downstairs. Clara stood at the stove, Josie perched on a chair beside her. Both of them silhouetted against the window. Clara was making coffee. Josie was watching with sleepy eyes. "I hope you don't mind," Clara said when she heard his footsteps. "After everything you did, I thought I could at least—" "It's fine." Eli moved into the kitchen. The coffee smelled like heaven. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than we have in months." Clara turned to face him. The bed was warm. Josie didn't wake up once. That hasn't happened since... She stopped. "Well, it's been a long time." They moved around each other carefully, learning the rhythm. Eli sliced bread. Clara found eggs in the cold box and scrambled them in his mother's old skillet. Josie watched everything, still holding that one-armed rag doll. They ate at the table, not at opposite ends the way Eli usually did, but clustered together near the middle, Josie between them. It felt strange. It felt right. "Tell me about your family," Clara said, gently cradling her coffee cup. "This house, it feels like it has stories." Eli hesitated. He didn't talk about them, hadn't in years. But something in Clara's quiet, patient gaze made the words come. "Ma died 8 years back. Fever took her. Pa went 6 months later. Doc said it was his heart, but I know better. It was grief. They were married 41 years. He couldn't breathe without her." "I understand that," Clara said softly. "This ranch was Pa's life work. His pa started it. Pa built it up. This house..." Eli gestured at the walls around them. "Pa built it with his own hands. Every board, every nail. Ma right beside him. It's beautiful. It was supposed to be full." Eli stared at his coffee. "Full of children, grandchildren. Instead, there's just me, keeping it exactly how they left it. Like a museum." Josie slipped down from her chair. Eli watched her wander into the parlor, curious, exploring. She stopped in front of something Eli had forgotten was there. Pa's old rocking horse, dusty, pushed into a corner. Josie looked back at him, those big eyes asking permission without words. Every instinct told him to say no. That horse was history, a relic, not to be touched. But her face so hopeful, so careful not to presume, "Go ahead," he heard himself say. Josie's smile could have lit the whole territory. She climbed onto the horse carefully, reverently. Began to rock. Her laughter bubbled up pure and bright, filling the house like bells. Clara's eyes glistened. She looked at Eli with something he couldn't name. "Your parents would have loved this," she said quietly, seeing the house full of life again. Eli couldn't speak. He watched Josie rock back and forth, her joy so complete it hurt. And that door inside him, the one he'd kept locked for 3 years, it swung wide open. That afternoon the sky turned mean. Eli stood at the window watching clouds pile up like bruises on the horizon. Wind picked up sharp and biting. Snow started falling thick, the kind that didn't let up for days. "Storm's coming," he said. Clara joined him at the window. Josie had fallen asleep on the sofa, the rag doll tucked under her chin, the quilt wrapped tight around her small body. "How bad?" Clara asked. "Bad enough. We ain't going anywhere for a while." He expected her to panic, to worry about imposing about propriety, about what people might think. Instead, she just nodded. Then we'll make ourselves useful. And she did. By evening, Clara had reorganized his cluttered pantry, mended a tear in the parlor curtain, and swept the kitchen floor twice. She moved through the house with quiet efficiency, finding work that needed doing without being told. She didn't erase anything. She tended. Eli watched her work and felt something stir in his chest. Something he'd thought died with Rebecca 30 years ago. "You don't have to do all that," he said. Clara looked up from the shirt she was mending. His shirt. She'd found it in the basket, torn at the shoulder, waiting for attention he'd never given it. "I know," she said simply. "But idle hands make for troubled minds. My mother used to say that." Smart woman. She was. Clara's needle moved in and out, precise and sure. She raised 7 children on a preacher's salary. Taught us all to work hard and pray harder. 7 children. I was the youngest. Margaret, my sister, she was the oldest. 15 years between us. Clara paused. We were never close, different as night and day. But she was family, and I thought... She shook her head. Doesn't matter now. Josie stirred on the sofa. Her eyes opened unfocused at first, then finding her mother. Mama, I'm here, baby. I'm hungry. Eli stood. I'll fix something. No. Clara set down the mending. Let me. You've done enough. She moved to the kitchen. Eli heard her opening cupboards, rattling pots. Josie sat up, rubbing her eyes. Mr. Eli. Yes, Josie. Is this your house? It is. It's big. She looked around, taking in the high ceilings, the empty rooms beyond. Do you live here all by yourself? I do. That's sad. The words hit him like a fist. Children didn't soften truth. They just spoke it. I reckon it is, Eli said quietly. Josie tilted her head, studying him. My papa died. Did yours die too? He did? And my ma. Do you miss them? Every day. Josie nodded, solemn. I miss my papa every day too. Mama says he's watching us from heaven. Do you think your mama and papa are watching you? Eli's throat closed up. He had to swallow twice before he could answer. I hope so. Maybe they're friends now, Josie said. Up in heaven. Maybe they talk about us. Something cracked inside Eli's chest. This child, this tiny person who'd lost so much, still found room for hope. Still believed in heaven and angels and papas watching from above. Maybe they do, he managed. Clara appeared in the doorway. Her eyes moved between Eli and her daughter, reading something in the air. Soup's ready, she said softly. They ate together again. 3 people at a table meant for 10. The wind howled outside, snow piling against the windows, but inside the house stayed warm. After supper, Josie discovered the bookshelf in Pa's study. Her eyes went wide. So many books. You like to read? Eli asked. Mama taught me. I can read real good, but we had to sell our books. Her face fell. Papa bought me a book once, about a princess, but we had to sell that too. Eli crouched down to her level. Pick anyone you want. We'll read it together. Josie's whole face lit up. She ran her fingers along the spines, finally pulling out a worn copy of fairy tales. Ma's book. Eli remembered her reading from it, her voice soft in the lamplight. This one, Josie said. Please, good choice. They settled by the fire. Josie curled up next to Eli on the sofa, closer than he expected. Clara sat in the chair across from them, her mending in her lap, but her eyes on them. Eli opened the book, started to read. His voice was rough, at first unpracticed, but Josie listened with her whole body, leaning into every word. And slowly, something loosened in him. The story came alive. He found himself doing voices, making Josie giggle at the silly parts, gasp at the scary ones. When he finished, Josie was half asleep against his arm. She likes you, Clara said quietly. Eli looked down at the child, her trust so easily given, her warmth so freely shared. She's a good girl. You've raised her right. Clara's eyes glistened. I've tried. God knows I've tried. Eli carried Josie upstairs, laid her in the big bed, tucked the covers around her. She didn't wake, just burrowed deeper into the warmth. When he came back down, Clara was standing at the window watching the storm. It's getting worse, she said. Could be days before it lets up. She turned to face him. Eli, I need you to know we'll leave as soon as we can. I won't impose on your kindness any longer than necessary. You ain't imposing. I am. Her voice was firm. A widow and her child staying with a bachelor. If anyone found out your reputation, my reputation don't mean a damn thing to me. The words came out sharper than he intended. Clara's eyes widened. I've spent 3 years alone in this house. Eli continued, his voice rough. 3 years talking to ghosts, eating at an empty table, keeping everything exactly the way Ma and Pa left it. Like if I changed anything, I'd be betraying them. He moved closer to her, not touching, but close enough to see the firelight reflected in her eyes. Then you showed up, you and Josie, and for the first time in 3 years, this house feels like something other than a tomb. Clara's breath caught. Eli, I ain't asking for anything. I ain't expecting anything. But don't talk about leaving like you're doing me a favor. Because having you here... He stopped. Couldn't find the right words. Clara reached out. Her hand touched his arm, light as a bird landing. I understand, she said softly. More than you know. They stood there, the storm raging outside, something fragile growing between them. Then Clara stepped back. We should sleep. Tomorrow will come soon enough. She walked toward the stairs, paused at the bottom step. Eli, yes, thank you, for everything. For the shelter, the food, the books. She paused. For lighting all those lamps. Why does everyone keep mentioning the lamps? Clara smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Because a house lit up like that in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm, it's like a promise. A promise that someone's waiting. Someone cares. She climbed the stairs, leaving Eli alone with the fire and his thoughts. The storm raged for 5 days. 5 days of snow piling higher against the windows. 5 days of wind screaming like something wounded. 5 days of the three of them trapped together in a house that grew smaller and larger at the same time. They fell into patterns. Clara cooked breakfast while Eli fed the animals in the barn. Josie helped with both her small hands, surprisingly useful. Afternoons they read together or played games Eli had forgotten existed. Checkers, cards. Simple things that somehow felt important. Evenings after Josie went to bed, Eli and Clara sat by the fire and talked. She told him about Samuel. How they'd met at a church social in Ohio. How he'd swept her off her feet with big dreams and bigger promises. The gold rush, he'd said. We'll be rich in a year. He wasn't a bad man, Clara said, staring into the flames. Just a dreamer. He couldn't see past the next big thing, always chasing something just over the horizon. Did you love him? Clara was quiet for a long moment. I loved who I thought he'd become. Does that make sense? More than you know? She looked at him, then really looked. Tell me about Rebecca. Eli hadn't spoken her name out loud in 20 years. It felt strange on his tongue. Sacred. She was a school teacher, back in Ohio. I met her when I went east to buy equipment for the ranch. She had this laugh. He closed his eyes, trying to remember. Like bells, like music. I fell in love with her the first time I heard it. What happened? We wrote letters for 2 years, made plans. She was going to come west and we'd get married right here in this house. Pa was going to build us a cabin on the north pasture. Eli's voice went rough. She got on a wagon train in April. Cholera hit them 2 weeks out. She died before they even reached Kansas. Clara's hand found his, squeezed. "I stopped believing after that," Eli said. "Not in God, I still go to church, say my prayers, but I stopped believing things would ever get better. Stopped hoping." He laughed bitterly. "Figured if I didn't hope for anything, I couldn't be hurt when it didn't happen. That's no way to live. No, it ain't." They sat in silence. The fire popped and crackled. Wind moaned against the walls. "Eli," Clara's voice was barely a whisper, "I've been punishing myself too. For Samuel's death. For losing everything. For failing Josie." "You didn't fail anyone. I should have seen the signs. The debts, the bad investments. I should have asked questions, demanded answers. But I was a good wife." The bitterness in her voice was sharp as a blade. "I trusted him. I didn't ask. And now my daughter has nothing." "She has you." Clara shook her head. "Some days that doesn't feel like enough." "It's more than enough." Eli turned to face her fully. "That girl loves you with everything she's got. She feels safe with you, protected. That's worth more than any gold mine or homestead." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away this time. "How do you do that?" she asked. "Do what?" "Make me feel like maybe everything will be all right, even when I know it won't be." Eli reached out, brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. His hand trembled. "Maybe," he said quietly. "We've both been so busy honoring the dead that we forgot how to live." Clara's breath caught. Her eyes searched his face. Then Josie screamed. They both ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Eli burst through the bedroom door first, heart pounding. Josie sat up in bed, sobbing, her whole body shaking. "Papa, Papa, come back." Clara pushed past Eli, gathered her daughter in her arms. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. It was just a dream." "He was there, Mama. Papa was there, and then he went away again. He keeps going away." "I know, sweetheart. I know." Eli stood frozen in the doorway. He'd intruded on something private, something sacred. He should leave, give them space. But Josie looked up. Her tear-stained face found him in the darkness. "Mr. Eli, can you stay? Please." Clara looked at him. Something passed between them. Permission, gratitude. Eli moved into the room, sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm right here, Josie." "My papa went away," Josie sobbed. "He went away and he didn't come back." "I know. Will you go away too?" The question hit him like a hammer. Eli looked at Clara over Josie's head. Her eyes were wet, waiting. "No," he said. The word came out rough, certain. "I ain't going anywhere." Josie reached for him. Small arms wrapped around his neck pulled him close. She smelled like soap and wood smoke and something sweet. "Promise." Eli closed his eyes, felt something shift inside him, something permanent. "Promise." The storm broke on the 6th morning. Eli woke to silence. No wind, no snow beating against the windows, just stillness and light pouring through the frost-covered glass. He dressed quickly, went downstairs. Clara stood at the window, Josie beside her, both of them watching the white world outside. "It's over," Clara said. Eli joined them. The snow lay deep and smooth, untouched. The sky was blue for the first time in nearly a week. "Roads should be passable by tomorrow," he said. Clara nodded. Her face was calm, but Eli saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, resignation. "We should start packing," she said quietly. "Clara." But before he could finish, they heard it. Horses, coming fast. Eli moved to the door, opened it. 2 riders emerged from the tree line. Eli recognized them immediately. Hank Peterson and his wife Beatrice, neighbors from the ranch 4 miles east. "Grantham," Hank called out, reining his horse to a stop. "We came to check on you. Storm was bad. Wanted to make sure you was still breathing." Beatrice's eyes had already found Clara and Josie in the doorway behind Eli. Her face changed. Something cold crept into her expression. "Mr. Grantham!" Beatrice's voice was sugar over ice. "We had no idea you had company." "Mrs. Weston and her daughter," Eli said, keeping his voice even. "They were caught in the storm. I gave them shelter." "How fortunate." Beatrice's gaze swept over Clara, taking in the worn dress, the tired eyes. Then to Josie, then back to Eli. "And they've been here the whole time. All 6 days." "That's right." Hank shifted in his saddle, uncomfortable. He was a decent man, but weak. He'd never stood up to Beatrice in 30 years of marriage. "Well," Beatrice smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure the ladies in town will be relieved to hear you're safe. I'll let them know you're, well, taken care of." The implication hung in the air like poison. "You do that, Mrs. Peterson." Eli's voice went hard. "And while you're at it, you can tell them I did what any Christian would do. Gave shelter to souls in need." Beatrice's smile tightened. "Of course, Christian charity." She turned her horse. "Come along, Hank. We've seen what we came to see." They rode away, but Eli knew the damage was done. Beatrice Peterson had the biggest mouth in 3 counties. By nightfall, everyone would know. A bachelor, a widow, 6 days alone. The gossip would spread like wildfire. Clara's hand touched his arm. He turned to find her face pale, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Don't. This ain't your fault." "It is." Her voice broke. "We should have left sooner. Found somewhere else. Now your reputation." "Clara." He took her shoulders, made her look at him. "I don't give a damn about my reputation. You hear me? Not one damn." "You should." A tear slipped down her cheek. "A man like you alone out here, you need your neighbors. You need the town. If they turn against you because of us, then they ain't worth having." Josie appeared between them, looking up with worried eyes. "Why was that lady mean, Mama?" Clara knelt down, gathered her daughter close. "She wasn't mean, baby. She was just surprised. She looked at us like we were bad." "We're not bad." Clara's voice was fierce now. "Don't you ever think that. Not ever." Eli watched them. Mother and daughter clinging to each other against a world that kept trying to tear them apart. And something hardened inside him. Something that had been soft with doubt and fear crystallized into certainty. "You're not leaving tomorrow," he said. Clara looked up. "What?" "The roads might be clear, but you're not leaving. Not yet. Not until we figure out what comes next." "Eli, we can't stay here. Not now. Not after—" "The hell you can't." He crouched down eye level with Josie. "You like it here, don't you?" Josie nodded, eyes wide. "You like the books, the rocking horse, the warm fire." Another nod. "Then you're staying. Both of you. At least until the weather turns proper and we can figure out a real plan." He looked at Clara. "I ain't sending you back out into that world with nothing. Not when I've got room here. Not when I've got means." Clara's eyes filled with tears again. But this time they weren't tears of shame. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this for us?" Eli stood, looked at this woman who'd stumbled into his life a week ago and turned everything upside down. "Because I spent 30 years waiting for something good to happen," he said. "Waiting for God to send me a reason to keep going. And then you knocked on my door." Clara's breath caught. "I ain't letting you go," Eli said. "Not without a fight." That night, after Josie was asleep, Eli found Clara in the parlor. She was lighting the lamps. All of them. Just like he'd done that first night. "What are you doing?" he asked. Clara turned to him, a match still burning in her hand. "Keeping a promise." "What promise?" She smiled. Soft. Real. "That someone's waiting. That someone cares." She lit the last lamp. The house blazed with light, every window glowing warm against the cold, dark world outside. "Eli!" Clara moved toward him, stopped just inches away. I'm scared. Of what? Of hoping, of wanting, of believing that maybe, just maybe, this could be real. Eli reached for her hands, took them in his. They were trembling. I'm scared too, he admitted. Terrified, if I'm honest. I stopped believing in good things a long time ago. So did I. But here we are. Here we are. They stood there, hands clasped, lamplight dancing around them. Whatever happens with the town, with the gossip, with all of it, Eli said, we'll face it together. You understand? You and Josie ain't alone anymore. Clara's tears fell freely now, but she was smiling through them. Neither are you, she whispered. Neither are you. Outside, the stars came out cold and bright. Inside, every lamp burned, and somewhere between the darkness and the light, two broken hearts began to beat again. 2 days later, Eli rode into town. He needed supplies, salt flour coffee, things that couldn't wait. But more than that, he needed to know what he was facing. Silver Creek looked the same as always. Wooden buildings lining the main street, horses tied to posts, folks going about their business. But when Eli dismounted outside Harper's General Store, he felt it immediately. The stares. 2 women standing near the dressmaker's shop stopped talking mid-sentence. Their eyes followed him, then cut away when he looked back. A man Eli had known for 15 years crossed to the other side of the street, rather than pass him on the boardwalk. Eli's jaw tightened. So it had begun. He pushed through the door of the general store. The bell jingled overhead, and the 3 customers inside turned as one. Silence. Then whispers. Low, urgent, not quite quiet enough. 6 days alone. Widow and her child. Grantham of all people. Eli walked to the counter. Old Tom Harper stood behind it, his face carefully neutral. Eli. Tom nodded. What can I get you? Flour, 20 pounds, salt, coffee beans, sugar if you've got it. Tom moved to fill the order. Behind Eli, the whispers continued. Shameful is what it is. Poor woman probably had no choice. Always knew there was something strange about him. Eli's hands curled into fists at his sides. He breathed deep, kept his voice level. How much, Tom? $4 even. Eli counted out the coins, set them on the counter. Eli. Tom's voice dropped low. I've known you since you were a boy. Your pa was a good man, so I'm going to give you some advice. I didn't ask for advice. You're getting it anyway. Tom leaned closer. Send that woman and her child away, today, before this gets any worse. Gets worse how? Tom glanced at the customers behind them, lowered his voice further. Harriet Thornton's been talking. She's got half the town convinced you're, well, you know what she's saying. I know what the truth is. Truth don't matter much when Harriet Thornton decides otherwise. Tom pushed the supplies across the counter. She's powerful, Eli. Her husband owns the bank. She's got friends everywhere. If she decides to make your life difficult, then I'll deal with it. Eli gathered his supplies, turned toward the door. Marcus Thornton stood in the entrance blocking his way. The banker was a small man, thin and precise, with wire-rimmed spectacles and a permanent expression of mild disapproval. But it was his wife who stepped out from behind him that made Eli's blood run cold. Harriet Thornton. She was 48 years old, with sharp features and sharper eyes. Her dress was the finest in town, her hat imported from San Francisco. She looked at Eli like he was something she'd scraped off her boot. Mr. Grantham. Her voice carried through the whole store. How fortunate we ran into you. Mrs. Thornton, Mr. Thornton. We were just discussing you. Harriet smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The whole town has been discussing you, actually. I'm sure they have. Such a scandal. She clicked her tongue. A bachelor taking in a widow and her child, 6 days alone together. What must the neighbors think? I don't much care what the neighbors think. No. Harriet's eyes glittered. Perhaps you should. Your father cared very much about this family's reputation. He built it up over 40 years, and now his son is throwing it away for some vagrant. Eli's jaw clenched so tight he heard his teeth crack. Mrs. Weston ain't a vagrant. No. What would you call a woman with no home, no husband, and no prospects? A woman who shows up on a stranger's doorstep and refuses to leave. She didn't refuse anything. I asked her to stay. Gasps from the customers behind him. Harriet's smile widened. You asked her to stay. She savored the words. How interesting. Marcus, did you hear that Mr. Grantham asked a strange widow to stay in his home? Indefinitely, it seems. Marcus Thornton cleared his throat. Eli, perhaps we should discuss your loan situation. You were planning to expand the herd this spring, weren't you? Buy that parcel of land from the Hendricks estate. What about it? Well, Marcus adjusted his spectacles. Given the circumstances, I'm afraid the bank will need to reconsider. Reputation matters in business, you understand. We can't be seen lending to individuals of questionable character. Eli stared at him. Questionable character? Nothing personal, of course, just business. My father banked with you for 35 years. Yes, well, Marcus looked away. Times change. Eli felt the walls closing in. No loan meant no expansion. No expansion meant the ranch would stagnate, eventually fail. Everything his father had built, everything his grandfather had started, gone. Because a woman with a poisoned tongue decided to destroy him. This ain't right, Eli said quietly. And you know it. Harriet stepped closer. Her perfume was cloying too sweet. What I know, Mr. Grantham, is that decent people don't behave the way you've behaved. If you had any sense, you'd send that woman and her brat away immediately. Then perhaps this can all be forgotten. Her name is Clara, and the child's name is Josie. I don't care what their names are. You should. Eli met her eyes. Because they're staying, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Harriet's face went red. We'll see about that. She turned and swept out of the store, her husband scurrying behind her. Eli stood there, supplies in his arms, feeling like he'd just declared war. Maybe he had. He rode home in a daze. The words kept echoing in his head. Scandal. Vagrant. Questionable character. The bank reconsidering. Everything he'd worked for. Everything Pa had built. At risk, because he'd done the right thing. When he came through the door, Clara was waiting. She took one look at his face and knew. It's bad, isn't it? Eli set the supplies on the table, sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Harriet Thornton's declared war. She's got the whole town talking, and her husband's threatening to deny my loan. Clara's face went white. Eli, no. I need that loan to buy new cattle, to expand. Without it. He shook his head. The ranch won't survive another 5 years. This is my fault. Don't. It is. Clara moved toward him, her eyes filling with tears. We should never have stayed. I knew it was wrong. I knew people would talk, but I was selfish. I wanted... She stopped, swallowed hard. I wanted to believe we could have a home, a real home, and now I've destroyed yours. Clara, we'll leave tonight. No, we have to. Her voice rose desperate. Don't you understand? They'll take everything from you. The ranch, the house, your good name, everything your parents built. And for what? For us, we're not worth that. We're not worth anything. Eli stood, crossed to her in 2 steps, took her face in his hands. You listen to me, he said, his voice rough. You are worth everything. You hear me? Everything. Eli. I've spent 30 years in that house alone, 30 years keeping it exactly the way my parents left it, like some kind of shrine. You know what that got me? Nothing. Empty rooms and empty days and a heart so dried up I forgot it was there. Tears streamed down Clara's face. She didn't try to wipe them away. Then you showed up, Eli continued. You and Josie, and suddenly this house means something again. Suddenly I have something to fight for. But the cost is mine to pay, and I'm paying it gladly. He pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her, felt her body shake with sobs against his chest. I ain't letting you go, he whispered into her hair. Not for Harriet Thornton, not for the bank, not for anybody. Clara clung to him. What are we going to do? We're going to fight. The next morning, Eli hitched up the wagon. Where are we going? Josie asked, bouncing with excitement. Church. Clara went pale. Eli, we can't. We can. And we will. He helped her up onto the wagon seat. We ain't hiding, Clara. We ain't acting like we've done something wrong, because we haven't. They'll tear us apart. Let them try. Josie climbed up between them, oblivious to the tension. I like church. Mama used to take me every Sunday, before Papa died. Then you'll like this one, Eli said. Reverend Ashford's a good man. Fair. He'll give us a chance. And if he doesn't? Clara asked quietly. Eli flicked the reins. The horses started forward. Then we'll know where we stand. The ride to town took an hour. With every mile, Clara seemed to shrink further into herself. But Josie chattered happily about the snow, the horses, the birds she spotted in the bare trees. When they reached the church, Eli's heart sank. A crowd had gathered on the steps. More people than usual for a Sunday service. Word had spread. Everyone wanted to see the show. Eli pulled the wagon to a stop, helped Clara down, then Josie. Hold your head up, he murmured to Clara. Don't let them see you're afraid. I am afraid. I know. So am I. But we walk in there together. Understand together. Clara nodded, took his hand. Josie grabbed her other hand. They walked toward the church. The crowd parted. Silence fell like a stone. Every eye tracked them up the steps, through the doors, down the aisle. Eli led them to a pew in the middle. Not hiding in back, not defiant in front. Present. Accounted for. They sat. Whispers erupted behind them. Eli heard fragments. Shameless. Brazen. What nerve. Clara's hand tightened on his. He squeezed back. Then a voice cut through the whispers. Well, I never. Harriet Thornton, sitting 3 rows behind them, surrounded by her allies. Her voice carried perfectly, deliberately. To parade around like this, in God's house, it's an insult to decent people everywhere. Eli started to turn. Clara's hand on his arm stopped him. Don't, she whispered. Don't give her the satisfaction. Reverend Ashford appeared at the pulpit. He was a young man barely 40 with kind eyes and a gentle manner. His gaze swept the congregation, pausing briefly on Eli and Clara. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, maybe, or pity. Brothers and sisters, he began, let us pray. The service dragged on. Every hymn felt pointed. Every scripture reading seemed aimed directly at them. When the Reverend spoke of casting the first stone, Harriet Thornton snorted loudly. Finally, mercifully, it ended. Eli stood, helped Clara and Josie to their feet. They started toward the door. Harriet Thornton stepped into the aisle, blocking their path. Leaving so soon, Mr. Grantham, Mrs. Weston, is it? Her smile was pure venom. I was hoping we could have a word. We've got nothing to say to you, Eli said. Oh, but I have plenty to say to you. Harriet's voice rose, playing to the crowd. The whole town is talking, you know, about your arrangement. There's no arrangement. I gave shelter to a woman and child caught in a blizzard, that's all. For 6 days alone. Harriet laughed. Please, we're not naive. Clara stepped forward. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. Mrs. Thornton, I don't know why you've decided to make us your enemies. We've done nothing to you, Nothing to anyone. All we wanted was a chance to survive. Harriet's eyes narrowed. Survive, is that what they're calling it now? Mama. Josie tugged at Clara's skirt. Why is that lady being mean again? Harriet looked down at the child. Something flickered in her face. For a moment, just a moment, she looked almost human. Then it passed. Perhaps, Harriet said coldly. If your mother had made better choices, you wouldn't be in this situation. Josie's face crumpled. Something snapped inside Clara. Don't you dare! Her voice came out low and dangerous. Don't you dare speak to my daughter that way. Or what? Or I'll show you exactly what a desperate woman is capable of. The two women stared at each other. The whole church held its breath. Then a new voice broke the silence. That's enough. Everyone turned. Doc Henry Whitmore stood near the door. He was 62 years old, white-haired and weathered, the only doctor for 50 miles. He'd delivered half the children in this room, saved the other half from fever and injury and worse. When Doc Whitmore spoke, people listened. I've known Eli Grantham since before he could walk. Doc said, his voice carrying through the silent church. I knew his father and his mother. Better people never lived. And I know what kind of man Eli is. Honorable, decent. The kind of man who'd give a stranger the coat off his back and never mention it again. Harriet opened her mouth. Doc cut her off. I've also heard the gossip, Harriet. All of it. And I'm here to tell you, it's garbage. That woman and her child would have died in that blizzard if Eli hadn't taken them in. He saved their lives. And this is how we repay him, with whispers and accusations. The impropriety, Harriet sputtered. Impropriety be damned. Doc stepped closer. I seem to recall a certain young woman 30 years ago who spent a week alone at the Miller farmstead with a man who wasn't her husband, while her own husband was away on business. Harriet's face went scarlet. The difference is, Doc continued quietly, nobody talked about that, because some things are best left forgotten. Perhaps you should remember that, Harriet, before you throw any more stones. The silence was absolute. Harriet's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Then she turned and swept out of the church, her husband trailing behind her like a kicked dog. Doc Whitmore walked to Eli, held out his hand. Welcome back to the world, son. It's good to see you living again. Eli shook the old man's hand. His throat was too tight to speak. Clara touched Doc's arm. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Doc's expression was serious. Harriet won't forget this. She'll bide her time, wait for the right moment. You haven't won. You've just bought some breathing room. Then we'll use it, Eli said. See that you do. Doc glanced at Josie, who was watching with wide eyes. Pretty little thing. Reminds me of my granddaughter. He tipped his hat to Clara. Ma'am, pleasure to meet you properly. And you, doctor. Doc walked away. Slowly the crowd began to disperse. A few people nodded to Eli as they passed. Others avoided his eyes, but the open hostility had faded. For now. They rode home in silence. Josie fell asleep against Clara's shoulder, exhausted by the drama she didn't fully understand. When they reached the ranch, Eli helped Clara down. Their eyes met. That was close, Clara said. Too close. She'll come back. Doc said so. I know. What do we do? Eli looked at the house. His father's house. His mother's house. The house that had been a tomb for 3 years and was finally starting to live again. We keep fighting, he said. We don't give up. We don't back down. And we show this town that they can't break us. Clara nodded slowly. Together. Eli took her hand, raised it to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. Together. That evening, as darkness fell, Clara moved through the house, lighting every lamp. Eli watched her from the doorway, this woman who'd turned his life upside down, who'd brought him back from the dead without even trying. Eli. She turned to him, match in hand. What are you thinking? He crossed to her, took the match from her fingers, lit the final lamp himself. I'm thinking, he said quietly, that I don't want to waste any more time. Clara's breath caught. What do you mean? I mean I've spent 30 years being careful, being proper, waiting for the right moment, the right woman, the right everything. And all it got me was an empty house and a broken heart. He cupped her face in his hands. She trembled, but didn't pull away. I'm done waiting, Clara. I'm done being careful. I want to live. Really live. With you. With Josie. Whatever time I have left, I want to spend it here. With my family. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Family. You're my family now. Both of you. If you'll have me. Eli. Her voice broke. Are you asking? I'm asking you to marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Clara stared at him, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes. She laughed through her tears. Yes, Eli, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper. She melted into him, her arms around his neck, her heart beating against his. When they finally broke apart, Josie was standing in the doorway. Are you kissing my mama? She asked, eyes wide. Clara laughed, wiping her tears. Yes, baby. He is. Does that mean we're staying forever? Eli crouched down to her level. It means, he said, that I'm going to be your papa now. If you'll let me. Josie's face transformed. Pure joy. Pure light. Really, really, truly. Really, truly. She launched herself at him. Eli caught her, lifted her high, spun her around while she shrieked with laughter. Clara watched them, hand pressed to her heart, tears still flowing. And outside the windows, every lamp blazed bright, casting golden light across the snow-covered prairie. A beacon. A promise. A home. 2 days passed before Eli could bring himself to ride into town. He needed supplies. Flour running low, coffee almost gone, salt for the meat. But more than that, he needed to see what was waiting for him out there. What Beatrice Peterson's wagging tongue had done. Clara stood on the porch as he saddled his horse. Let me come with you, she said. No. Eli. I need to see how bad it is first. He swung up into the saddle. Stay with Josie. Keep the doors locked. You're scaring me. He looked down at her. This woman who'd survived so much already, who deserved peace, not more war. I'll be back before dark, he said. I promise. He rode out before she could argue. The road to Silver Creek stretched long and white ahead of him. 4 miles of nothing but snow and silence. 4 miles to think about what he was about to face. Eli had never cared much what people thought. He'd lived alone too long for that. But Clara and Josie were different. They were vulnerable. They had no protection except him. And if the town turned against them, he pushed the thought away. One thing at a time. Silver Creek appeared over the last rise, a cluster of wooden buildings huddled against the cold, the church steeple pointing at the gray sky like an accusation. Eli rode down Main Street. The stairs started immediately. 2 women outside the millinery shop stopped mid-conversation. Their eyes tracked him like he was a wild animal loose in the street. One of them leaned to whisper something. The other covered her mouth with her hand. A man Eli had known for 15 years crossed to the other side of the road rather than pass him. So it had begun. Eli dismounted outside Harper's General Store, tied his horse to the post, walked inside. The bell above the door jangled. Every head in the store turned. 3 customers, Mrs. Fletcher, the blacksmith's wife. Old Tom Harper behind the counter. and in the corner pretending to examine bolts of fabric, Harriet Thornton. Eli's stomach dropped. Harriet Thornton was the most powerful woman in Silver Creek. Her husband Marcus owned the bank. She owned everything else: the gossip, the social calendar, the unwritten rules of who belonged and who didn't. When Harriet Thornton decided you were finished, you were finished. She looked up now, her eyes glittering with triumph. "Why, Mr. Grantham?" Her voice carried through the whole store. "What a surprise! I thought you'd be too busy entertaining to come to town." Eli walked to the counter, kept his voice level. "Tom, I need flour, 20 pounds, coffee, salt." Tom Harper's face was carefully blank. He'd been a friend of Eli's father, a decent man. But he wasn't meeting Eli's eyes. "Sure thing, Eli. Give me a minute." "Take your time." Eli turned to face Harriet. "Mrs. Thornton, I've been hearing the most interesting things about you." Harriet moved closer, her silk skirts rustling. "A widow and her child staying at your ranch. For almost a week now, isn't it alone? They were caught in the blizzard. I gave them shelter." "How Christian of you." The word dripped with poison. "And they're still there, even now that the roads are clear." "That's right." "How very cozy." Mrs. Fletcher gasped softly. Tom Harper dropped a tin of coffee beans. The sound echoed through the silent store. "I gave shelter to 2 people who would have died otherwise," Eli said, his voice hardening. "If that troubles you, ma'am, I'd say that's your problem, not mine." Harriet's smile didn't waver. "Oh, it's not my problem at all, Mr. Grantham, but it might become yours. You see, I've been talking to some of the other ladies. We're all very concerned about that poor child, living in such irregular circumstances." "There's nothing irregular about it. A bachelor and a widow playing house." Harriet laughed. "Please, we're not children here. We know what that means." Eli felt his hands curl into fists. He forced them open. "Say what you came to say, Mrs. Thornton." "Very well." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Send them away. Today. And perhaps this can all be forgotten. People will talk for a while, but eventually they'll find something else to gossip about. And if I don't—" Harriet's eyes went cold. "Then I'll make sure everyone in this territory knows exactly what kind of man you are. No one will do business with you. No one will sell you supplies. No one will speak to you or that woman or her brat. Her name is Clara, and the child's name is Josie. I don't care what their names are." Harriet's voice dropped to a hiss. "Send them away, Eli, or I'll destroy you." She turned and swept out of the store, the bell jangling violently behind her. Silence. Tom Harper finally looked at Eli. His face was troubled. "She means it," Tom said quietly. "You know she does." "I know. She's got half the town already convinced. The other half's too scared to argue." Tom pushed the supplies across the counter. "Whatever you decide, Eli, decide fast, before this gets any worse." Eli paid for his goods, walked out into the cold. His horse waited by the post breath, steaming in the winter air. Eli stood there for a long moment, supplies heavy in his arms. Send them away. The words echoed in his head. He could do it. He could ride home right now, tell Clara and Josie they had to leave. Find them passage to California, give them money, wash his hands of the whole thing. His life would go back to normal. Quiet, empty, safe. 30 years of nothing. Eli loaded his supplies onto the horse, mounted up, and rode home. Clara was waiting on the porch when he arrived. One look at his face, and she knew. "How bad?" she asked. Eli dismounted, led his horse to the barn. Clara followed her shawl pulled tight against the cold. "Bad," he said finally. "Harriet Thornton." Clara went pale. "I've heard that name. At the general store when we first arrived. People are afraid of her." "They should be." Eli unsaddled his horse, working mechanically. "She runs this town. Her husband owns the bank, but she owns everything else. The gossip, the reputation, who gets invited to what? Who gets shut out? What did she say? Eli turned to face her. Clara stood in the barn doorway, arms wrapped around herself. She looked so small, so vulnerable. She said if I don't send you away, she'll destroy me. Make sure no one in the territory does business with me. Cut me off completely. Clara's breath caught. Eli! I told her no. The words hung in the cold air. Clara stared at him. You what? I told her no. Eli moved toward her, took her cold hands in his. Clara, I spent 30 years in that house alone. 30 years waiting for something good to happen. And then you showed up. You and Josie. And for the first time in my life, I have something worth fighting for. But the ranch, your livelihood, means nothing without someone to share it with. He cupped her face in his hands. Don't you understand? I'd rather lose everything than go back to that emptiness. I'd rather fight the whole damn town than let you go. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You barely know us. I know enough. Eli, you can't throw away your whole life for two strangers who stumbled onto your doorstep. You're not strangers anymore. His thumb brushed a tear from her cheek. Your family. Clara broke. She collapsed against his chest, sobbing. Eli held her tight, feeling her body shake with grief and relief and fear all tangled together. We'll fight them, he said into her hair. Together. Whatever comes. I'm so scared. Me too. He pulled back, looked into her eyes. But I'd rather be scared and fighting than safe and dead inside. Clara nodded slowly, wiped her tears with the back of her hand. What do we do now? Eli thought about it. About Harriet Thornton and her threats. About the stairs in town, the whispers, the crossed streets. We go to church, he said. Clara blinked. What? Sunday, 2 days from now. We walk into that church together, all three of us. We show them we're not ashamed. We're not hiding. They'll tear us apart. Let them try. Eli's jaw hardened. I'm done letting other people decide what my life looks like. It's time to take a stand. Sunday morning came too fast. Clara stood before the small mirror in the guest room, trying to make herself presentable. Her dress was worn but clean. She'd mended the tear at the hem, brushed the fabric until it almost looked new. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all she had. Josie sat on the bed watching her mother with worried eyes. Mama, why are you sad? Clara forced a smile. I'm not sad, baby, just nervous. About church. Yes. But church is nice. The singing and the stories. Josie tilted her head. Why would you be nervous about something nice? Clara didn't have an answer for that. Eli appeared in the doorway. He'd put on his Sunday best, a dark suit that had probably belonged to his father, slightly too big in the shoulders. Ready? He asked. Clara met his eyes in the mirror. No. Me neither. He held out his hand. Let's go anyway. The ride to town felt endless. Eli drove the wagon. Clara sat beside him, Josie between them. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the creak of wheels and the steady rhythm of hooves on frozen ground. When the church steeple came into view, Clara's hands started shaking. There's still time, she said quietly. We could turn back. No. Eli, please. Think about what you're risking. He pulled the wagon to a stop, turned to face her. Clara, look at me. She looked. I've thought about it, every minute of every day since you knocked on my door. And here's what I know: I'd rather have 1 day of really living than 100 years of that empty existence I had before. Even if it costs you everything. Even then. He took her hand, squeezed hard. Now, are you with me? Clara looked at his face. The determination there, the fear he was trying to hide. This man who barely knew her, who was willing to sacrifice everything for her and Josie. "I'm with you," she said. They rode the rest of the way in silence. The church was already full when they arrived. People milled about outside talking in small groups. When Eli's wagon appeared, every conversation stopped. Silence fell like a hammer. Eli helped Clara down from the wagon, then Josie. He took Clara's hand in his right, Josie's in his left. "Head up," he murmured. "Don't let them see you're afraid." They walked toward the church. The crowd parted. Not out of respect, out of shock. Eli heard the whispers start up behind them. "Can't believe he brought her." Shameless, absolutely shameless. That poor child caught up in all this. Clara's hand tightened on his. Eli squeezed back. They climbed the steps, pushed through the doors. Inside the sanctuary was packed. Every pew filled. Every eye turning toward them. At the back, Harriet Thornton sat enthroned among her allies. Her face went rigid when she saw them. Eli led Clara and Josie down the center aisle. Not to the back where they could hide. Not to the front where they'd seem defiant. To the middle, present, accounted for, unashamed. They sat. The whispers grew louder. Eli heard fragments. "Never in all my years." What was he thinking? Poor thing, she must have seduced him. Clara's hand was shaking now. Eli covered it with his own. "I'm here," he said quietly. "Right here." Reverend Thomas Ashford appeared at the pulpit. He was a young man barely 45 with kind eyes and a careful manner. His gaze swept the congregation, pausing briefly on Eli and Clara. Something flickered in his face. Sympathy, maybe. Or warning. "Let us pray," he said. The service began. Every hymn felt pointed. Every scripture reading seemed aimed at them. When the Reverend spoke about casting stones, Harriet Thornton coughed loudly. Finally, mercifully, the sermon ended. Eli stood, helped Clara and Josie to their feet. They started toward the door. Harriet Thornton stepped into the aisle, blocking their path. "Mr. Grantham?" Her voice rang through the church. "Leaving so soon, I was hoping we could all have a word." The congregation rustled. People craned their necks to see. "I've got nothing to say to you, Mrs. Thornton." "No." Harriet smiled, all teeth. "But I have so much to say to you, to both of you." Her eyes cut to Clara. "Mrs. Weston, is it? How nice to finally meet the woman who's caused so much talk." Clara's chin lifted. "I've caused nothing. I was caught in a storm. Mr. Grantham saved our lives." "Is that what they're calling it now?" Harriet laughed, the sound brittle as ice. "How very romantic. A helpless widow, a lonely rancher, a convenient blizzard. It sounds like one of those dreadful novels." "You should be ashamed of yourself." The words came out before Clara could stop them. The church went dead silent. Harriet's smile froze. "I beg your pardon? You heard me." Clara stepped forward. Her fear transformed into something harder. "I've done nothing wrong. Mr. Grantham has done nothing wrong. We've committed no sin except surviving. And you stand there in God's house spreading poison and calling it righteousness." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Harriet's face went red. "How dare you speak to me that way?" "How dare I?" Clara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Ma'am, I've buried a husband. I've lost my home, my savings, everything I ever had. I've walked through snow and slept in barns and begged for scraps to keep my daughter alive. You think your words scare me?" She took another step forward. Harriet actually stepped back. "You can spread all the gossip you want. You can turn this whole town against us. But you cannot break me. You cannot break us. Because we have something you'll never have." "And what's that?" Clara took Eli's hand, pulled Josie close. "Each other." The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then a voice spoke from the crowd. She's right. Everyone turned. Doc Henry Whitmore stood near the back of the church. White-haired, weathered, 70 years old, the most respected man in Silver Creek. He walked forward slowly, his boots echoing in the silence. "I've known Eli Grantham since he was born," Doc said. "Delivered him myself, in fact. Knew his father and mother, too. Better people never lived in this territory." "Doctor, this is hardly the place," Harriet began. "This is exactly the place." Doc stopped beside Eli and Clara. "I've also heard the gossip, Harriet. Every filthy word of it. And I'm here to tell you, it's lies." "Lies? That's what I said. This woman and her child would have died in that blizzard if Eli hadn't taken them in. He saved their lives, did what any Christian would do." Doc's voice hardened. "And this is how we repay him, with whispers and accusations." Harriet's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "I'll tell you something else," Doc continued. "I was there when Eli's father died. Sat with him through his last night. You know what Joseph Grantham's last words were? Silence. He said, 'Don't let that boy die alone in that house. Don't let him become a ghost while he's still breathing.'" Doc looked at Eli. "I've watched you for 3 years, son. Watched you fade away a little more each day. And now I see you standing here fighting for something living again. Your father would be proud." Eli's throat closed up. He couldn't speak. "So here's what's going to happen." Doc turned to face the congregation. "Anyone who has a problem with Eli Grantham or Mrs. Weston can take it up with me, personally, because I'm standing with them, and I'll stand with anyone else who chooses to do the right thing." A murmur ran through the crowd. Then Adelaide Brennan stepped forward, the widow who ran the general store. 70 years old, survived 5 children and 2 husbands. "I'm standing with them too," she said. Then Tom Fletcher. Young lost his wife last year. 3 children to raise alone. Count me in. Then others, one by one. Not everyone, not even most, but enough. Enough to break the silence. Enough to crack Harriet's hold. Harriet looked around at the shifting crowd, her face a mask of fury. "This isn't over," she hissed. "No," Eli said quietly. "It's just beginning." Harriet turned and swept out of the church, her husband scurrying behind her. Clara's legs gave out. Eli caught her, held her up. "I've got you," he said. "I've got you." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling too. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "Not yet." Doc Whitmore's voice was grave. "Harriet Thornton doesn't lose gracefully. She'll be back, meaner than ever." "Let her come," Eli said. He looked at Clara, at Josie, who was holding his hand so tight her knuckles were white, at the people who'd stood up for them. "We're not running anymore." That night, Eli found Clara on the porch. She stood watching the stars, her shawl wrapped tight against the cold. When she heard his footsteps, she didn't turn. "Josie's asleep," she said. "Took a while, all the excitement." Eli moved to stand beside her. "How are you?" "Terrified. Grateful. Hopeful." She laughed softly. "All at once. That's a lot." "It is." She finally looked at him. "Eli, what you did today, what you've done since we arrived, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't need thanks." "What do you need?" The question hung in the cold air. Eli turned to face her fully. This woman who'd stumbled into his life and turned everything upside down. "I need you to stay," he said. Clara's breath caught. "Eli, not as a guest, not as charity." He took her hands. They were cold, trembling. "Stay as my wife." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "What? Marry me, Clara." You can't mean that." I've never meant anything more in my life." He pulled her closer. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I've spent 30 years waiting for the right time, the right moment, the right everything. And all it got me was empty rooms and a dead heart. The town, Harriet, don't care. Your reputation, don't care about that either." He cupped her face in his hands. "All I care about is you and Josie. Building something real, something good in whatever time we have left." Clara was crying freely now. "I'm scared." "So am I. What if it doesn't work? What if they destroy us? Then at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have lived." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Say yes, Clara. Please, say yes." A long moment passed. Then Clara whispered, "Yes." Eli kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper. Her arms went around his neck, his around her waist. The cold forgotten, the fear forgotten, everything forgotten, except this moment, this woman, this impossible second chance. When they finally broke apart, Clara was laughing through her tears. "Josie's going to be so happy," she said. "Let's tell her in the morning. She'll probably scream." "Probably." Eli smiled. "I'm looking forward to it." They stood there on the porch, arms around each other, watching the stars wheel overhead. And in the window behind them, every lamp in the house burned bright. Josie screamed. Not from fear, from pure explosive joy. "Really, really, truly, you're gonna be my papa." Eli knelt down to her level. "If you'll have me." Josie threw herself at him so hard she nearly knocked him over. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, squeezing tight. "Yes, yes, 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 yes." Clara laughed through her tears. "I think that's a yes." Eli held the child close, feeling her heart pound against his chest. This tiny person who'd lost so much, who'd been through so much, still had room for hope. Still believed in happy endings. He'd spend the rest of his life making sure she got one. When Josie pulled back, her face flushed with excitement. "When are you getting married? Can I come? Can I wear a pretty dress? Can I throw flowers?" "Soon," Eli said. "Very soon." This week, Clara knelt beside them. "Baby, we have to talk to Reverend Ashford first. Make arrangements." "But I want it to be now." "I know. So do I." Clara smoothed Josie's wild curls. "But some things are worth waiting for." Josie's face scrunched up, thinking hard. Then she looked at Eli. "You promise you won't change your mind?" The question hit him like a fist. This child had already lost one father. Already learned that the people you love can disappear without warning. "I promise," Eli said. "Cross my heart. And hope to die." "Josie." Clara gasped. "It's all right." Eli met the child's eyes. "And hope to die. I'm not going anywhere, Josie. Not ever." She studied his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded solemnly. "Okay. I believe you." She hugged him again, then scrambled down and ran toward the house, shouting something about telling her doll the good news. Clara watched her go, shaking her head. "She's going to be impossible now." "Good." Eli stood, pulled Clara into his arms. "She should be impossible. She should be loud and demanding and full of joy. That's what children are supposed to be." Clara rested her head against his chest. "What did I do to deserve you? You knocked on my door. I nearly died on your porch. Best thing that ever happened to me." She laughed, but there was a catch in it. "Eli, are you sure about this? About all of it? The town still—" "I know what the town thinks. I don't care. But—" He tilted her chin up, made her look at him. "Clara, I've spent 54 years on this earth, 30 of them alone. I know what I want. I want you. I want Josie. I want this family we're building, and I'll fight anyone who tries to take it from us." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I love you." The words hung in the cold morning air. Eli's heart stopped, then started again, beating harder than before. Say that again. I love you, Eli Grantham. Clara reached up, touched his face. I didn't think I could. After Samuel, after everything. I thought that part of me was dead. But you brought it back. You brought me back. Eli kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. I love you too, he said against her lips. God help me, I love you too. The next morning, Eli rode into town alone. He had business to conduct, arrangements to make, and he wanted to gauge the temperature before bringing Clara and Josie back into that hornet's nest. Silver Creek looked different in the daylight, less threatening somehow. Just a collection of wooden buildings and frozen mud and ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. But Eli knew better. Harriet Thornton was out there somewhere plotting, waiting. He tied his horse outside the church and went to find Reverend Ashford. The Reverend was in his study, bent over a worn Bible. He looked up when Eli knocked. Mr. Grantham, please come in. Eli entered, hat in hand. Reverend, I've come to ask a favor. Oh, I want to get married. To Clara Weston. As soon as possible. Ashford's eyebrows rose. I see. I know what people are saying. I know what it looks like. But Clara's a good woman, and I love her. I want to make it official. Make it right. The Reverend was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Eli, I've been praying for you for 3 years, praying that you'd find your way back to living, that you'd stop punishing yourself for things that were never your fault. Reverend, let me finish. Ashford stood, moved around his desk. What you did for that woman and her child, taking them in, caring for them, standing up for them in front of the whole town, that took courage. Real courage. The kind most people only talk about. Eli didn't know what to say. I'd be honored to marry you. Ashford continued. How does Saturday sound? Saturday's perfect. They shook hands. Eli felt something loosen in his chest. One obstacle down. He was walking back to his horse when he saw her. Harriet Thornton, standing on the boardwalk across the street, watching him. Their eyes met. Harriet smiled, not a friendly smile, the smile of a predator sizing up its prey. Then she turned and disappeared into the bank. Eli's good mood evaporated. He rode home faster than necessary, pushing his horse hard. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Clara met him at the door. One look at her face, and he knew. What happened? A letter came. Her voice was shaking. While you were gone, a man delivered it. She held out a piece of paper. Eli took it, scanned the words. His blood ran cold. They can't do this. They can. Clara's face was pale. They're claiming I'm an unfit mother, that Josie's living in immoral conditions. They want to take her away. Who's they? The county. The letter says there's been a formal complaint. Clara's voice broke. Eli, they want to take my daughter. Eli read the letter again. Official letterhead, legal language, a hearing scheduled for Friday morning. Friday, the day before his wedding. Harriet Thornton, he said. What? This is her doing. I saw her in town just now outside the bank. She looked like a cat that swallowed a canary. Eli crumpled the letter in his fist. She couldn't destroy us through gossip, so she's using the law. Clara sank into a chair. What do? We fight. How we don't have money for lawyers. We don't have connections. All we have is each other. Eli knelt before her, took her hands. We have each other. And we have people who stood up for us in that church. Doc Whitmore, Adelaide Brennan, Tom Fletcher. That's not enough. It has to be enough. He squeezed her hands. Clara, look at me. I'm not letting them take Josie. Do you hear me, over my dead body? Don't say that. I mean it. His voice was fierce now. That little girl is my daughter. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. and I will burn this whole territory down before I let anyone hurt her." Clara stared at him. Something shifted in her eyes, fear giving way to something harder. "Then we fight," she said. "We fight." The next 3 days were chaos. Eli rode from ranch to ranch, calling in every favor he'd ever earned. Doc Whitmore agreed to testify to Clara's character. Adelaide Brennan offered to speak about the supplies Clara had bought, the way she'd handled herself in town. Tom Fletcher would swear that he'd seen nothing improper at the church. Clara prepared Josie as best she could. "Baby, some people are going to ask you questions. About Mama, about Mr. Eli, about living here." Josie's face went serious. "Why?" "Because some people think maybe you'd be better off somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" Josie's eyes went wide. "You mean away from you?" "They want to talk about it, yes." "No," Josie's voice rose to a shriek. "No, I won't go, I won't! You can't make me!" Clara gathered her close. "Shh, baby, shh. No one's going to make you do anything. We're going to fight this. Eli and me together. Promise?" "Promise." But later that night, after Josie was asleep, Clara sat by the fire and wept. Eli found her there, sat beside her, didn't speak. "I can't lose her," Clara whispered. "She's all I have. You have me. If they take her—" Clara shook her head. "I won't survive it, Eli. I survived Samuel's death. I survived losing everything. But this, losing my child, it would kill me. They're not going to take her. You don't know that. I know I'll do whatever it takes to stop them." He pulled her close. "Whatever it takes, Clara. I swear on my parents' graves." She clung to him in the firelight, both of them afraid, both of them determined. And somewhere in town, Harriet Thornton was sharpening her knives. Friday morning dawned cold and clear. Eli, Clara, and Josie rode into town together. All three of them dressed in their best clothes. All three of them silent with fear. The hearing was held in the town hall, a small room usually used for council meetings, now packed with spectators. Harriet Thornton sat in the front row, her husband beside her. Her face was serene, confident, the face of a woman who knew she'd already won. Judge Harold Patterson presided, 70 years old, stern as granite, known for his rigid adherence to the law. "This hearing will come to order," the judge said. "We are here to determine the welfare of the minor child, Josephine Weston. Mrs. Thornton, you filed the complaint. Please state your case." Harriet rose smooth as silk. "Your Honor, this is a simple matter of protecting an innocent child. Mrs. Weston, a widow of questionable circumstances, has been living in sin with an unmarried man for nearly 2 weeks. The child has been exposed to immoral behavior, improper living arrangements, and God knows what else." Murmurs from the crowd. "Furthermore," Harriet continued, "Mrs. Weston has no means of support, no home, no family, no prospects. How can such a woman possibly provide for a child?" "That's a lie." Everyone turned. Josie was on her feet, her small face red with fury. "My mama is the best mama in the whole world. She kept me safe when we had nothing. She walked through snow so I could eat. Josie." Clara pulled her daughter down. "Hush, baby." "But she's lying, Mama. She's telling lies about you." Judge Patterson banged his gavel. "The child will remain silent, or she will be removed." Josie's mouth clamped shut, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Eli stood. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "And you are. Elijah Grantham, owner of Grantham Ranch, the man Mrs. Thornton is accusing of immoral behavior." Patterson studied him. "Speak." Eli moved to the front of the room, faced the crowd. "Mrs. Thornton has told you a story about sin and scandal and moral failure. Now let me tell you the truth." He took a breath. "On Christmas Eve, a woman and her child knocked on my door. They'd been caught in the blizzard. They were half frozen, starving with nowhere to go. I took them in, fed them, gave them shelter, because that's what any decent human being would do. For 6 days, someone called out. The storm lasted 6 days. Was I supposed to throw them out into a blizzard? Let them freeze to death so the neighbors wouldn't talk? Silence. Mrs. Weston is not a woman of questionable circumstances. She's a widow who lost everything through no fault of her own. A mother who sacrificed everything to keep her child safe. A good woman who deserves help, not condemnation. Eli turned to face Harriet directly. And as for living in sin, Mrs. Weston and I are to be married tomorrow, by Reverend Ashford in the church before God and the whole town. There is nothing immoral happening under my roof. There never has been. Gasps from the crowd. Harriet's composure cracked. You're only marrying her to escape judgment. I'm marrying her because I love her. Eli's voice rang through the room. Because she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Because her daughter has become my daughter in my heart, if not in law. He looked at Clara, at Josie, both of them watching him with tears in their eyes. This isn't about protecting a child, Eli continued. This is about one woman's spite, her wounded pride, her need to control everyone and everything in this town. How dare you? Harriet sputtered. I dare because it's true. Eli turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I'm asking you to see this complaint for what it is. A vendetta, nothing more. Judge Patterson was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. Doc Whitmore, you've been practicing medicine in this town for 40 years. What's your assessment? Doc stood slowly. I've known Eli Grantham his whole life, known his family even longer. He's one of the most honorable men I've ever met. And Mrs. Weston, from what I've seen, is a devoted mother who'd walk through fire for that little girl. Adelaide Brennan. Adelaide rose. I've talked to Mrs. Weston, sold her supplies. She's polite, hard-working, and obviously loves her daughter more than life itself. There's nothing wrong with that woman except being poor, and last I checked, poverty wasn't a crime. Tom Fletcher. Young Tom stood nervous but determined. I lost my wife last year, left me with 3 kids to raise alone. If someone had helped me the way Eli helped Mrs. Weston, I'd have gotten on my knees and thanked God. We should be celebrating what he did, not punishing him for it. More murmurs. The mood in the room was shifting. Harriet felt it. Her face went pale. Your Honor, surely you can't. I can and I will. Patterson banged his gavel. I've heard enough. The complaint is dismissed. There's no evidence of improper behavior or unfit parenting. This hearing is over. Clara collapsed against Eli, sobbing with relief. Josie threw herself at both of them, screaming with joy. Harriet Thornton sat frozen in her seat, her face a mask of disbelief. Then Marcus Thornton did something no one expected. He stood up. Harriet, he said quietly. It's over. Marcus. No. His voice was firm. For the first time anyone could remember. I've gone along with your schemes for 30 years. Your gossip, your manipulations, your need to control everyone. But this is too far. This was a child, Harriet. An innocent child. He turned to Eli. I'm sorry, Marcus said, for what my wife has done, for not stopping her sooner. He paused. And for the record, the bank will honor your loan. Whatever you need. He walked out of the room without looking back. Harriet sat alone, abandoned, defeated. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she stood, gathered her skirts, and swept out of the hall with whatever dignity she had left. Eli watched her go. It's over, Clara whispered. It's really over. Not yet. Eli took her hand. We still have a wedding tomorrow. Clara laughed through her tears. I almost forgot. Don't worry. He kissed her forehead. I'll remind you. That night they lit every lamp in the house. Josie ran from room to room, helping her earlier fear transformed into wild celebration. We won, she kept shouting. We won, we won, we won. We did. Clara caught her daughter, swung her up into her arms. We really did. And tomorrow you're getting married. Tomorrow we're getting married. And I get to throw flowers. All the flowers you want. Josie squealed with delight. Eli watched them from the doorway. This woman, this child, this family that had fallen into his life like a miracle. Clara looked up, met his eyes. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking I'm the luckiest man alive. Even after everything. Because of everything." He crossed to them, wrapped his arms around both of them. "I wouldn't change a single moment. Not the storm, not the scandal, not any of it. Because it all led to this." "To what?" Eli smiled. "To home." Outside the stars burned cold and bright. Inside the lamps blazed warm and golden, and three people held each other close, ready to face whatever came next. Together. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in silence. Eli woke before dawn. Lay still in the darkness, listening to the old house settle around him. Today he would marry Clara Weston. Today his life would change forever. He wasn't afraid anymore. He dressed carefully in his father's Sunday suit. The one Pa had worn to his own wedding 53 years ago. Ma had kept it pressed and clean stored in cedar to keep the moths away. Eli stood before the mirror adjusting the collar. "Well, Pa," he said to the empty room. "I'm finally doing it. Hope you approve." No answer. But somewhere in the silence, Eli felt something like warmth, like blessing. He went downstairs. Clara was already up, standing in the kitchen, her back to him, staring out the window at the gray dawn. "You're supposed to be getting ready," Eli said. She turned. Her eyes were red. "Clara, what's wrong?" "Nothing." She wiped her face quickly. "Everything. I don't know." He crossed to her, took her hands. "Talk to me." "I'm scared." The words came out small. "I know it's foolish. After everything we've been through after yesterday. But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being happy." Clara laughed bitterly. "Isn't that ridiculous? I'm scared of being happy. Because every time I've been happy, something terrible has followed. Samuel died. We lost the house. We lost everything. What if this time is different?" She looked at him. "How do you know it will be?" "I don't." Eli pulled her close. "I can't promise you nothing bad will ever happen. I can't promise we won't face more hardship, more struggle. Life doesn't work that way." "Then what can you promise?" "That you won't face any of it alone. That whatever comes, we'll face it together. You, me, and Josie." He tilted her chin up. "That's what marriage is, Clara. Not a guarantee of happiness. A promise to share the load." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling now. "How did you get so wise?" 54 years of making mistakes." He kissed her forehead. "Now go get dressed. We've got a wedding to attend." Josie was a whirlwind of excitement. She ran through the house in her new dress, a gift from Adelaide Brennan, who'd stayed up all night sewing it. White cotton with blue ribbons. Josie thought it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever worn. "I look like a princess," she announced, spinning until her skirts flew out. "You look beautiful, baby." Clara knelt to adjust a ribbon. "Now remember what I told you. When Reverend Ashford gives the signal, you walk down the aisle and throw the flowers. Slowly, not all at once." "I know, Mama. You told me 100 times." "I'm telling you 101. Josie giggled. Then her face went serious. "Mama." "Yes, baby. After today, is Eli really going to be my papa?" Clara's throat tightened. "Yes, really and truly. Forever. Forever." Josie thought about this. "Good. Because I already love him. Is that okay?" Clara pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "That's more than okay. That's perfect." The church was full. Word had spread fast after yesterday's hearing. Everyone wanted to see what happened next. Some out of support. Some out of curiosity. A few probably hoping for more drama. Eli stood at the altar, Doc Whitmore beside him as best man. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. "Nervous?" Doc asked. "Terrified." "Good. Means it matters." The doors at the back of the church opened. Clara appeared in the entrance. She wore a simple blue dress, not white, that was for first marriages, but to Eli she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Josie walked ahead of her scattering flower petals with more enthusiasm than precision. The congregation chuckled. A few people wiped their eyes. Clara walked slowly down the aisle. Her eyes found Eli's and didn't leave. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You came," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought maybe you'd come to your senses." Clara laughed softly. "Too late for that." Reverend Ashford cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple. Traditional words spoken in a traditional way. But to Eli, every word felt brand new, sacred, revolutionary. "Do you, Elijah James Grantham, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "Do you, Clara Ann Weston, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." "The rings, please." Doc handed Eli a simple gold band. Clara's eyes widened. "Where did you—" "It was my mother's." Eli slid the ring onto her finger. "Pa gave it to her on their wedding day. She'd want you to have it." Clara's tears fell freely now. "I don't have anything to give you," she whispered. "You've given me everything." "By the power vested in me," Reverend Ashford said, his voice thick with emotion, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Eli kissed Clara, soft and sweet and full of promise. The church erupted in applause. Josie threw the rest of her flowers in the air, showering everyone nearby. "They're married! They're married!" Clara laughed through her tears. Eli pulled both of them close, and for the first time in 30 years, he felt complete. The reception was held at the ranch. Half the town showed up. Adelaide Brennan brought enough food to feed an army. Tom Fletcher brought his children, who immediately befriended Josie. Even Marcus Thornton appeared, briefly offering awkward congratulations before slipping away. Harriet Thornton was conspicuously absent. "Good riddance," Adelaide muttered, arranging platters. "That woman's caused enough trouble for one lifetime." "She won't stop," Clara said quietly. "Women like her never do." "Let her try." Adelaide's eyes sparkled. "She's not the only one with influence in this town. Some of us have decided it's time for a change." Clara didn't ask what that meant. She was too happy to worry about tomorrow. As the afternoon wore on and guests began leaving, Doc Whitmore pulled Eli aside. "I have something for you." He handed Eli an envelope. Inside was a legal document. "What's this?" "Adoption papers. For Josie." Doc smiled at Eli's stunned expression. "I took the liberty of having them drawn up. Judge Patterson signed them this morning. All you need to do is add your signature and that little girl is legally your daughter." Eli stared at the papers. His hands were shaking. "I don't know what to say." "Say thank you and go sign them." Eli found Clara in the kitchen cleaning up despite protests from the few remaining guests. "Clara, look at this." She took the papers, read them. Her face went white. "Is this real?" Doc arranged it. The judge already signed. Eli took her hands. "If I sign this, Josie becomes my daughter. Legally. Officially. No one can ever take her away." Clara burst into tears. Hey. Eli pulled her close. "I thought you'd be happy." "I am happy. I'm so happy I can't breathe." She looked up at him, tears streaming. "Sign it. Sign it right now." They found Josie in the parlor showing her new friends the rocking horse. "Josie, come here for a minute." The child ran over breathless. "What is it? Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Eli knelt down to her level. "I need to ask you something important." Josie's face went serious. Okay. You know I married your mama today. That makes me your stepfather. He held up the papers. But this document says I can adopt you. Do you know what that means? Josie shook her head. It means you'd become my daughter. Not just because I married your mama, but because the law says so. It means your name would change. You'd be Josephine Grantham. It means no one could ever separate us. You'd be mine, forever. Josie's eyes went huge. Really? Really? But only if you want it. Only if you say yes. The child was quiet for a long moment. Eli's heart hammered in his chest. Then Josie spoke. Would I have to forget my other papa? The one who died? Eli's throat closed up. No, sweetheart, never. Your papa will always be your papa. He loved you, and nothing can change that. I'm not trying to replace him. I just want to add to what you have. Give you more love, more family, more people who will protect you. Josie considered this. So I'd have two papas, if you want. One in heaven and one here. That's right. Another long pause. Then Josie's face broke into a smile so bright it could have lit the whole prairie. Yes, she said. I want that. I want you to be my papa. Eli grabbed her, lifted her high. She shrieked with laughter. Put me down. Put me down. He set her on the table, instead pulled out a pen. Watch this, he said. He signed his name on the adoption papers, big and bold and certain. Josie watched fascinated. What does it say? It says Elijah James Grantham adopts Josephine Ann Weston as his daughter. He looked at her. It says you're mine now, Josie, for always. Josie launched herself at him again. He caught her, held her tight. Clara wrapped her arms around both of them, crying and laughing at the same time. My family, she whispered. My beautiful family. When spring came slowly to Montana. First the snow melted, revealing brown earth hungry for sun. Then green shoots pushed through, brave and determined. The world turned from white to brown to green, from death to rebirth. Clara planted a garden. She worked the soil with patient hands, coaxing life from the ground. Tomatoes, beans, herbs, flowers. The garden grew wild and beautiful, spilling color against the weathered wood of the house. Josie helped. She'd become Eli's shadow, following him everywhere, asking 1,000 questions a day. She'd also started school, making friends, coming home with stories and drawings and endless chatter. She called him Papa now, had since the day he signed those papers. The word still made his heart catch every time. One evening in late April, Clara found Eli on the porch. He sat in Pa's old rocking chair, watching the sun set over the mountains. She settled into the chair beside him, Ma's chair, unused for 8 years, until Clara claimed it. What are you thinking about? She asked. Everything. Nothing. He reached for her hand. How different things are now. Good different. The best different. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came with true intimacy. Eli. I need to tell you something. Something in her voice made him turn. Her face was glowing, nervous, hopeful. What is it? Clara took his hand, placed it on her belly. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Eli stared at her, at his hand on her stomach, at the impossible, miraculous truth of what she was saying. We're going to have a baby. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Doc Whitmore confirmed it this morning. I'm about 2 months along. A baby. Our baby. Eli pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she laughed. You're crushing me. I don't care. His voice was rough with emotion. A baby. Clara, we're having a baby. Are you happy? Happy. He pulled back, cupped her face in his hands. I'm 54 years old. I spent 30 years alone. I thought I'd die without ever having a family of my own. And now I have you and Josie and a baby. He kissed her. deep and fierce and full of joy. "I'm not happy," he said against her lips. "I'm something beyond happy. There isn't a word for what I am." Clara laughed through her tears. "We should tell Josie. She's going to scream." "Definitely." They found Josie in the parlor, playing with her doll on the rocking horse. "Josie, honey, Papa and I have something to tell you." The child looked up, curious. "What?" Clara knelt beside her. "How would you feel about being a big sister?" Josie's eyes went wide. "A big sister? You mean a baby?" "That's right. Mama's going to have a baby." For a moment, Josie was silent. Then her face transformed. "A baby! We're having a baby!" She screamed so loud the windows rattled. "I told you," Eli said. Clara laughed, catching Josie as she leaped off the rocking horse. "Easy, sweetheart. The baby won't be here for a while yet. When? Around November, Doc says. That's forever. It'll go faster than you think." Eli ruffled her hair. "And you've got an important job in the meantime." "I do. You have to help your mama. Make sure she rests. Make sure she doesn't work too hard." He knelt to her level. "Can you do that?" Josie's face went solemn with responsibility. "I can do that. I'll take care of her, Papa. I promise." "That's my girl." Summer passed in a golden haze. The ranch thrived. The new cattle Eli bought with his loan grew fat on sweet grass. Clara's garden produced more vegetables than they could eat. Josie finished her first year of school at the top of her class. And every evening, as the sun went down, they performed their ritual. Eli would start in the parlor, lighting the first lamp. Clara would follow with the kitchen, the hallway, the study. Josie would run ahead, carrying candles, placing them in windows. By the time they finished, the house blazed with light. "Why do we do this, Papa?" Josie asked one night. Eli lifted her up so she could light the lamp in the high window. "Because when your mama and I first met, she said she saw my light from miles away. It guided her through the storm, brought her to my door. And now we keep the lights burning for anyone else who might be lost out there, so they know there's shelter here. There's welcome. There's home." Josie considered this. "So we're like a lighthouse." "Something like that?" "I like that." She smiled, satisfied. "We're a lighthouse for people who need us." November came cold and fierce. Clara's time drew near. Doc Whitmore visited weekly, then daily. Eli paced the house like a caged animal, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to do anything but wait. "You're going to wear a hole in that floor," Clara said from her chair by the fire. "I can't help it. Come sit with me." He sat. She took his hand. "Whatever happens," Clara said, "I want you to know these months with you have been the happiest of my life." "Don't talk like that." "I'm just saying." "Don't." His voice was sharp. "You're going to be fine. The baby's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine." Clara smiled. "All right. We're all going to be fine." That night, her labor started. Hours of pain. Hours of waiting. Eli held her hand until she nearly broke his fingers. Josie sat outside the bedroom door, refusing to leave, refusing to sleep. And just before dawn, a new cry filled the house. Doc Whitmore emerged exhausted but smiling. "Congratulations, Eli. You have a son." A son. Eli stood frozen. Then his legs gave out and he had to catch himself on the doorframe. A son. Healthy as a horse. And Clara's fine. Tired but fine. Go on in. Eli entered the bedroom. Clara lay in the bed, pale but radiant, and in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was the smallest human being Eli had ever seen. "Come meet your son," Clara whispered. Eli moved to the bed, sat on the edge, looked down at the tiny face, the wisps of dark hair, the perfect miniature fingers. "He's so small." "He's perfect." Clara shifted the bundle. "Do you want to hold him?" Eli's hands were shaking as he took the baby. So light, so fragile, so impossibly miraculously real. "Hello," Eli whispered. "Hello, little one." The baby opened his eyes, blue like Clara's. He looked up at Eli with unfocused newborn curiosity. And Eli, who hadn't cried since his mother's funeral 8 years ago, felt tears streaming down his face. "What should we call him?" Clara asked. Eli looked at her, at this woman who'd given him everything: wife, daughter, son, family, life. "Joseph," he said. "After my father, Joseph Samuel Grantham." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Samuel was my husband's name." "I know. Both our fathers in one name. The past and the present together." Clara reached for him. He leaned down, baby cradled between them, and kissed her. "Joseph Samuel Grantham," she whispered. "It's perfect." The door burst open. Josie ran in, unable to wait any longer. She skidded to a stop at the sight of the baby. "Is that him? Is that my brother?" "Come see," Eli said. Josie climbed onto the bed, careful not to jostle her mother. She peered at the baby with wide eyes. "He's so tiny." "You were that tiny once," Clara said. "Was not. Were too." Josie reached out one finger, touched the baby's hand. Joseph grabbed it, held on tight. "He's got me," Josie gasped. "He's holding my finger. He knows his big sister," Eli said. Josie's face transformed. Pride, wonder, love. "I'm going to take care of you," she told the baby solemnly. "I'm going to be the best big sister ever, I promise." They stayed like that for a long time, the four of them together in the golden lamplight, a family born from storm and struggle and stubborn hope. Outside, snow began to fall, gentle soft blanketing the world in white. But inside the house, every lamp burned bright. Every window glowed with warmth. Eli looked at his wife, his daughter, his newborn son. Thought about the night Clara had appeared on his doorstep, half frozen, desperate with nothing but a child and a plea. "We have nowhere to go," she'd said. And he'd opened his door, lit every lamp, and said the only word that mattered: home. That was almost a year ago now. A year of fighting and fearing and hoping and healing. A year of learning what it meant to love and be loved. A year of building something beautiful from the wreckage of 2 broken lives. "Eli," Clara's voice was drowsy. "What are you thinking?" He smiled, leaned down, kissed her forehead. "I'm thinking that Pa was right." "About what?" "About legacy." Eli looked around the room, at the house his father built, at the family that now filled it. "He told me once that legacy isn't what you keep, it's what you give away." Clara's hand found his. "And what have you given away?" Eli thought about it. His solitude, his fear, his careful, protected heart. And what had he gotten in return? Everything. "Love," he said finally. "I gave away my loneliness, and I got love in return." Clara smiled. Her eyes were closing, exhaustion finally claiming her. "Best trade you ever made," she murmured. "The very best." She slept. Josie curled up beside her baby Joseph, still gripping her finger. Eli sat there in the lamplight, watching over all of them. His family, his home. Outside, the snow fell soft and silent, covering the Montana prairie in white. But from miles away, anyone traveling through the darkness would see it a house ablaze with light, every window glowing, every lamp burning bright, a beacon in the wilderness, a promise to the lost. Here is shelter, here is welcome, here is love, here is home.